Good morning and welcome to Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. As we say that knowledge and new developments are always there and they're for the good of the people. I was amazed that in Norway Ocean team has come up with a very novel situation to control hurricanes. Now, this is in fact the human ingenuity which widens the horizons of knowledge and makes our life better, but for the interference by the busybodies who want to exploit people. Now, in the recent years, as we have seen, hurricanes have grown more severe. USA in particular is affected with them terrible, the Puerto Rico, Texas, California, Florida, name it. And they're more damaging, property damaging, and life threatening. And that's partly because of the rising ocean surface temperature. So this Norwegian startup company, Ocean Therm, they have come up with a novel situation. They, with the help of underwater pipes, reach deep into the ocean at the very bottom and pump up cold water bubbles. Now these bubbles, when they come up, they reduce the surface temperatures. And it has been seen that it was reduced by 4%, 4 degrees Celsius. 4 degrees Celsius reduction means we go back to the 17th century if the global warming people are to be believed. And they say that such pipes can be installed permanently. So now what they are doing is they are setting up a 2-year pilot program in the Gulf of Mexico because that's afflicted maximum by the hurricanes. But this control of hurricanes would be a huge savior of mankind, both for protecting the property and the lives. And for this alone, the scientists deserve all our comments. But then, if you're talking to the oceans, are we aware that the biggest problem the oceans facing today is the plastic pollution? And blaming ordinary plastic in daily use is useful because that tends to reduce the pollution. But the largest share of the ocean plastic pollution is not from your daily use plastic, it's coming from the clothes you wear, the synthetic clothes. These synthetic cloth fibers are a huge contributor to the ocean plastic pollution. 1700,000 metric tons. 1700,000 of synthetic microfibers are released into the ocean every year. And this is the result of the study done at the University of California at Santa Barbara. Now, these microfibers, 1700, or the actually exact figure is 1700,000, 1700, 600,000. So, this huge amount is shed from the clothes during washing, and that ends up on land and ultimately flows down to ocean. Can you believe this is beyond imagination that this huge number is contributed by every individual who wears synthetic clothing. Every time you wash the clothing, you are polluting the ocean. And waterways are not the only place where that plastic accumulates. 14% of all the plastic is used to make synthetic fibers. Total production of plastic, 14% is used to make plastic fibers, chiefly clothing. And microfibers, as I said, are less than 5 millimeters in length, and they are generated in a large quantity in the every stage of fiber's life cycle, but increases enormously during washing. You see, when you wash in a washing machine or by hand, you mechanically fragment the synthetic fibers, and wash water becomes a part of the wastewater. If it's treated, that goes to the biosolid sludge. If it's not treated, it goes to the ocean. And if it's treated, it goes to the cropland or is buried in land refills. So both ways it's polluting. And that is something terrible to imagine. But while our daily use does contribute to pollution, we have seen again another instance of human ingenuity. There's a province in India called Uttarakhand. This is the north part near sub Himalayas. And one day, a guy was local, uneducated guy, was going across and he saw the pine needles drying in the sun. And a man was feeding the dried pine needles into a way, collecting them to burn them. So he said, well, if you can burn them, why can't we use them for electricity? So he collected them, put them in a metal cylinder, attached it to some chambers, motors, and set up a power plant. Power plant fed by the pine needles, the most non-polluting form of energy from Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is incidentally also called Devbhumi. Devbhumi is the land of the gods, and it's a pilgrimage center. Is in western arm of Himalayas, bordering Tibet to the north and Nepal to the east. So it has a lot of pine trees, large plantations. They were planted by the British colonies and later governments by for commercial use and resin. There's a huge resin. So it's all combustible and the fires take place. And those fires are terrible. So this gentleman, uneducated gentleman, set up the world's first 9 kilowatt pine needle power plant, and the electricity was generated in his workshop. Can you believe it? And then, not only that, when the leftover carbon from the pine needles is bound together with locally made glue and made into briquettes which can be burnt as a fuel. What a use! By now, in the last about 10 years, he has set up 725 kilowatt power plants which run in different villages. So each village has its own plant which provides light as well as fuel. And they are all owned by those villagers. And now they are planning five more such trees. So total they are planning is this inventor 40 projects. And believe me, there's no government support, no NGO support. It's one man's brain which came up with this novel idea, novel idea of producing generating energy, and then using the leftover sludge as fuel briquettes. And there's another benefit of this. The benefit is that it protects the forest from the fire. If they were left over there, and it was a normal phenomenon, not on the level which California has, and then you know what happens when the fire takes place? It destroys the whole ecosystem. And incidentally, let me tell you that in Uttarakhand there are a lot of medicinal plants which are destroyed by the fire. So now they are also reviving because there is no fire. So now the government, the GB Pant National Institute of Himalayan Environment has stepped in, and they say that that's helpful to them. So not for generation of electricity, okay, but for revival and survival of the medicinal plants through the gentleman. So this year, these are for the first time after 10 years that a plant called kafal has been emerging again. The golden Himalayan raspberry and Himalayan oak have also come up. So it's a total change of the brainwave of one person using pine needles left over as sludge, saving medicinal plants. This is human ingenuity, and that deserves all credit. But then human ingenuity is still more there. Cornell University researchers have created a microscopic robot that walks, is not visible to the human eye. It's such a small, tiny micro robot, and it walks using four legs like an ant. And then 10 of these micro robots occupy as much space as a full stop. The dot, signifying full stop. That can have 10. No benefit. Benefit is for the medical science. But then before that, let me tell you that the legs that these robots have can be independently triggered to bend using laser light. And by toggling the laser back and forth between the front and back legs, the robot walks. Now, this is basically for the human use. This robot shall be injected in the human bodies and it will hunt down inside the body and destroy the cancer cells. So, no medical, no chemotherapy, no radiation, have an injection of the robots. And those robots would go in as hunters, identify the cancer cells, and destroy them. Wow! I don't know how and to what extent can human ingenuity go, but then there's no limit. The sleep deprivation is one of the biggest problems of the modern age. Sleep apnea, disturbed sleep. So MIT has come up with a very novel solution, and they say it's a completely new way to monitor and promote sleep. They have developed a wireless way to monitor an individual's sleep using reflected radio signals from a small mounted device. The potential is a great medical device and it shall be extremely useful according to them for the patients suffering from epilepsy, bed sores, and Parkinson's disease. Because this will not only identify the sleep pattern, it will also inform in which position should the patient sleep. It's a very private way and that will help them whether to snooze on their back or stomach or sides. And the reflected radio signals mounted on a bedroom wall shall call it. The device is called the body compass. It's a home ready radio frequency based and accurate sleep without camera, without sensors tied to the bed. And the wireless signals would monitor sleep pattern and also according to Shizuoyu, the researcher, they will be sent back lulling the brain to sleep. So a continuous lullaby would be there to the person. So these are the latest developments and the horizon of knowledge keeps on expanding, widening, amazing as it is. This is something which makes us what we are, Homo sapiens, intelligent people. But for some people, this word would be place worth living. Meet next week. Thank you.